welcome again to Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. And if you follow the news at all, you know that there's quite a bit of controversy over police and community relations these days. And in the midst of that controversy, it's easy to lose track of the fact that police and other first responders put their lives on the line in the course of their jobs. And tonight we'll be talking about some of the people who have met or paid the ultimate price in the course of their line of duty. My guests tonight are Joe Ahern, the CEO of the 100 Club of Chicago, and Phil Cline, the Executive Director of the Police Memorial Foundation. And we'll be talking about what happens when policemen, and in your case, firefighters and other first responders, what happens to them and to their families if they are killed in the line of duty or otherwise. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here, both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for inviting us.
So let's talk a little bit about the individual organizations because they're similar, but there are differences. Mm-hmm. So Joe, let's talk a little bit about the 100 Club and what it is.
The 100 Club actually got started by a Pontiac car dealer in Detroit, Michigan. 1952, a police officer was shot and killed tragically in Detroit. And Pontiac car dealer read about the woman whose widow was going to lose her home. They didn't have the benefits, and he went and paid off her mortgage, paid off all of her debts. A month later, another police officer got shot, and the same car dealer reached out to two friends, and together they reached out to 100 people and said, we have to help these police officers and their families when a tragedy like that occurs. And so it was quickly morphed into 126 chapters around the country, 100 clubs, not affiliated with one another.
And where does the name 100 Club come from?
From the 100 people that all reached out and started putting funds together and reaching out for these families. And in the case of Chicago, in August 27th, coming up, 1966 was our, when we were incorporated as a 501c3. Mm-hmm. And so this August 27th will be our 50th anniversary.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And sadly, we need to be there because we've lost 260 law enforcement and firefighters over that period of time. That's about a little more than 5 a year. And we've given away over $10 million to the families of fallen. And there's no obligations here. They don't have to pay it back. There's no, they just no. And the best thing about this organization is that there's no bureaucracy. There's no wait list. If a police officer or firefighter is killed in the line of duty, then I show up usually within the first 24 hours, and with a check to help with $50,000 to help with immediate expense. And we're just there, and I tell the family that we're from the 100 Club family. We're here to help your family, and we'll be with you throughout the rest of your life in order to help. And we also help provide college education for all the kids. So as I said, we've given away over $10 million. We have 20 kids going into college in this new fall semester. Sadly, we have 67 sons and daughters of police officers and firefighters that will be coming of age in the future. And we have 20 universities and colleges that are providing 2 full scholarships each. That's about $3.5 million of scholarship funds. So that's helped us.
That's a tremendous contribution.
Oh, it's tremendous.
You don't have to raise the money for that. That's just coming from the colleges themselves.
Exactly. And we still provide up to $10,000 a year for their room and board and incidental expenses, but it's allowed us to keep on going. And frankly, that's what I do, and I know Phil does with the Chicago Police Memorial Foundation, is to continue to raise money and raise awareness, because sadly, it's so needed.
So Phil, let's talk a little bit about the Police Memorial Foundation, and I'll let our audience know, for those who may not remember, that you in fact were the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department for several years, 2003 to 7?
2007, yes.
Yeah.
In 2003, I became the superintendent, and I traveled to New York, LA, Boston, other big cities when they'd have conferences, and I noticed that every big city had a public memorial to police officers killed in line of duty, but Chicago did not. We had our honored star case, but that was in the lobby of police headquarters, and unless you were going to police headquarters, you'd never see it.
Right.
So I got together with the Gold Star families. Those are the ones that had lost someone in the line of duty.
Well, for the military families, right, Gold Star.
But this would be for police. We have
there's
a
a
Gold
Gold
Star
Star
families
for
for police officers also. And they wanted a public memorial. So we started raising money, and in a little over 3 years, we raised $3.5 million and built what we think is the best police memorial in the country. It's located right next to Soldiers Field, between Soldiers Field and Burnham Harbor. And We got a wall there with 575 names on it of police officers that have been killed in line of duty in the history of the Chicago Police Department.
That's a much higher number than I would have guessed.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and it's, you go down there and see the families tracing the names and the young kids touching their dad's name. It's very touching. I mean, I invite every Chicagoan to come down there. Not only is it a beautiful park, but it has such meaning to the police families.
I'm kind of stopped because I didn't realize that we didn't have any kind of memorial prior to your organization trying to build one. And so I kind of wonder, well, what happened? Were people asleep at the switch, or why did we find ourselves there?
I don't know. I mean, to me, it was embarrassing that every one of these other big cities that I traveled to had one, and we didn't. But now we have the best one.
There you go. Well, you're the latest entry, right? So
Yes.
you get to learn from the others.
So after we finished paying off the memorial in 2007, I went and saw Joe's predecessor at the Hunter Club and looked at what the Hunter Club did and what we could continue to do as the police memorial. So as Joe said, he handles college. We do grade school and high school. And then for catastrophically injured officers, we do, for their families, we do grade school, high school, and college. And such as Joe talked about, we're there for these families. Right now we have 28 kids that we're putting through school from kindergarten through grad school, that we have them in, and everywhere in between,
All the way through graduate school.
all the way through graduate school.
Now, do you have scholarships lined up with some schools as well?
With some
like
of the
Hunter
schools
Club?
we do, not as well as Joe does. I'm going to have to pick his pocket later on and see what I can do. But
Yeah. And you started later too, right? You
Yes.
have a few more years to work on it.
well, we've given out $7.5 million in since 2007, so we're doing
remarkable.
great.
Yeah. So who are the contributors? Who do you get as donors?
About half our money comes from Chicago cops themselves. They do payroll contributions to the Memorial Foundation. And then the other half is from business donations, the average person on the street, and then events. We do a 5K, we have a motorcycle ride, we have a lot of different events going on that raise the rest of our money.
And Joe, same thing.
Much like Phil, we have a big 50-year anniversary gala. It's September 22nd at the Four Seasons, and our goal was to raise $1 million so that we could set aside that 100% of that money to set aside for college education for the kids in the future. And reaching out to corporations, foundations, and wealthy donors that realize that the police and the firefighters are the last line of defense. God forbid, when something a tragedy happens, they're on the phone with 911 right away. And they're the ones that come running in if, when people are running out of the building and it's burning, or you're in a crisis situation, it's a police officer that's running to help you. And so most people, when they realize what our organizations do, they really want to reach in and help.
Well, and I would think, particularly if they recognize that without your organizations, both of them, that the families would be just simply left with nothing. All right, well, with whatever they have, but
Sure.
the breadwinner, the police officer, the firefighter would be gone. So there's not only the emotional trauma, but the immediate financial ramifications, right?
Well, you bring up a good point, because beyond the financial help and the educational support is for these families knowing that there's an outpouring of love and respect for their loss and their sacrifice, and knowing that that we're there. The emotional support is tremendously helpful for these families to deal with the crisis. And
do you have organized programs, like are there psychologists or counselors on staff that can help out with the emotional side?
I know Phil has been working with that, and we just got a new organization that is helping through Aon Insurance Company with a new organization that's helping to provide counseling and support. And we have a law firm that helps provide probate work for the families too, because when that crisis hits, it comes out of the blue. And so we're trying to provide really a safety net for the family that will help them over the next 1, 3, 5 years to be able to navigate through all these various crises.
Well, I think it would be particularly important in terms of the emotional support that the people who are in your organizations, you mentioned that it's not just that they're supporting because there's been a loss, but they know the job that the person did, they know the risks that the person undertook, they know the camaraderie that was there, and so they know the actual person too. It's not that the person isn't a stranger. So I would think that that level of connection is extremely important.
They still want to belong. In other words, the families, we have a candlelight vigil every year. This year it's September 13th. I invite the public to come out. It's at 7:30 at our memorial next to Soldiers Field. But every one of those names on that wall is read that night. And they're read by sons, daughters, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, partners. And it's very touching to hear somebody say, my father, and then say the name of the officer that was killed in line of duty. And under our umbrella, we have two organizations. We have the Gold Star families. These are the families who've had a police officer killed in line of duty. And we also have the police survivors. And these are police officers that were shot or seriously injured and survived the incident. And both of them are helping. Nobody can go through it like someone that's been through it. And that's so important. And that's what we try and do, is match up those families, or a guy that was shot and had a hard road to hoe coming back. We not only provide financial support for him, but we also provide emotional support for him.
You know, I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, the guys who are injured, and some of them who may not be able to come back to being a police officer, right? They may be too injured to do that. So you've got this organization that can help that side of the equation as well, right?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned something before the show, well, I thought that caught me by surprise, that you're raising money now behind the vest program?
Yeah, it's called Get Behind the Vest. In fact, we just had Corey Crawford of the Blackhawks do a PSA for it. And what it is 2 years ago at our Candlelight Vigil, we announced that Chicago police officers get a vest from the department when they're hired. The manufacturer recommends that they replace the vest every 5 years. So the one they were given in the academy is given to them. After that, it's on them to buy it. And the vests start at $500, so they're expensive. And when it comes time to get a new vest, there's tuition due, there's brakes for your car, and cops put it off. So we want our cops to be as safe as they could be, so we started this thing to raise $4 million to buy 8,000 vests. And so far we've bought 6,100 vests, so we got 6,100 cops out there that have new vests. Our goal is to get the other 1,900 vests in the next year.
And I assume you have a website as well for the Memorial Foundation. Can people find out more information about that and contribute online? And
right, for the vest, it's called getbehindthevest.org, and that'll give you all the information if you want to make a donation. And we're getting donations from $5 to thousands of dollars, so every little bit helps. We've had a lot of schools do pancake breakfasts and dress down days and a lot of other things where they're raising $200-300, or we had Alderman O'Shea out in the 19th Ward run a series of benefits and it raised $30,000 for us. So every $500 gives a cop a new vest. So it's a great program.
And I will reiterate my astonishment that the police department doesn't provide the vests for the officers. But as you mentioned, there's reasons for that.
And regardless of what their reasoning is, we need to get all cops safe. And one of the slogans is protect those who protect you, and that's so true.
So is there any there's similar programs, Joe, with the 100 Club where you might actually contribute equipment or supplies or something like that to organizations, to departments, fire departments, police departments?
No, I mean, the benefit from the 100 Club is really in college education and graduate school, and we have 2 law schools, Kent and John Marshall Law School, providing full scholarship and the $50,000 for the family to cover expenses. That's pretty much the extent, but it adds up quickly because with 20 kids in college and averaging about 5 fatalities a year, it's a pretty significant expense.
And that's actually, again, that's a large number, like the number on the memorial wall. 5 per year that's a lot.
Yeah, it really is. People don't realize how dangerous it is out there for our law enforcement and firefighters every single day. They're putting their life on the line every single day, and we expect so much from them. And then when tragically they lose their life in the line of duty, we're able to be there to help step in, and we're the first responders to the first responders, so to speak. And we have a big event coming up August 27th before the big gala, but August 27th is the actual 50th anniversary date, and at Woodstock Harley-Davidson in McHenry County, we're going to have a motorcycle ride, 50 miles for the 50th anniversary, and we'll travel through McHenry, Cook, and Lake County. And it's going to be escorted by the Illinois State Police Motorcycle Detail and the Chicago Police Department. And we expect up to as many as 1,000 motorcycle riders. It's $30 to register your bike, and it should be a lot of fun. We're going to start at 10:30 on Saturday morning at Woodstock Harley and take about 3 hours to get all the bikes through the municipalities, and then come back for a big barbecue, and we're going to have a band, and it should be a lot of fun. But with the fun, you have to remember that why we're there. I'll add one more anecdote. We just had the 100 Club Family Day at the Brookfield Zoo, and we had almost 500 people there, family members, extended family, kids and grandkids who were there to have a fun day at the zoo. And I had a fellow come up to me at the picnic and said, you know, my child said, gee, this is really exciting. It's a free day at the zoo. And he had to remind his child that it wasn't free, that your granddad paid the ultimate sacrifice for this. And it really is a very vivid reminder of how dangerous the job is and how it affects the family and the extended family for generations to come.
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've been thinking about when we talk about the emotional support and the emotional effect, it must linger for an extremely long time afterward. And how do you? I mean, there's all sorts of conflicting emotions: sadness, anger that this happened to the person in the family, even thoughts that, gee, we got vengeance. There's all sorts of things that come through that you can't really control. So, how do you guys cope with that?
One of the things is we offer them counseling, and then, like you said, either if it's a line of duty death, then the Gold Star families will meet with that family after everything is over, after the funeral and everything else, because that's when everything tends to die down. Right. I mean, after the officer is shot and killed, there's a lot of attention on the family. There's the funeral, relatives in from out of them. But then a couple weeks later, everything starts dying. Well, that's when our Gold Star families step in and start meeting with the family and helping them. And it's so important. And
if you're a family member, that support is there as much as you need, right?
As much as you need or as little as you need. So every family is different.
Yeah, they all process their grief in so many different ways. And I can't say enough about the chaplains unit, too. Father Brand at the Chicago Police Department.
So what is the chaplains unit?
And in the case of the Chicago Police Department, Father Dan Brandt has priest, rabbi, and ministers that minister to the police and their families. And frankly, they could use another 25 to be there to help the families because of the stress of the job and what they have to go through. It's almost impossible to be able to deal with that on a day in and day out basis without some spiritual counseling and help. And they do a masterful job. And the same is true with the fire department. Father Mulcrone does a wonderful job of dealing with the family and the stresses that they experience.
Is there anything similar with the Memorial Foundation?
Well, I mean, the police chaplain, we work hand in hand with them. But one of the other things that the public may not realize, policemen have a suicide rate about twice the general public.
Yeah. I guess I'm not surprised if I think about that.
But it does. Well, the big reason is having that gun on their hip allows them the immediacy of they're in that demean and do it. But every year we have a seminar. We bring in experts from around the country to talk about how we can alleviate police suicides, how we can let supervisors know warning signs to look for and help get these officers.
Has it been effective? Have you seen some
Yeah, we think
changes
so.
there?
I mean, but unfortunately, we every year we have a couple of suicides, and it's you always look and say, how could we prevent it? And that's where we work hand in hand with the chaplains, with peer support, with professional counseling to do that.
And I would say to your audience that if you see a police officer out there, even in your suburban municipality or certainly in the city of Chicago, go up to them and thank them for their service. It really, it means a lot. It really means a lot to hear from the people that they're serving that they're appreciated.
Well, we talk, the news talks, with the contentiousness sometimes in some communities between police and the community members, that the police seem isolated from the community. But that works both ways too, doesn't it? I mean, the police certainly could make more outreach, but hearing you, the community could do that as well. Right?
It's mutual respect.
Sure.
The police need to respect the community, and the community needs to respect the police. And when you have that, in certain neighborhoods you do, it works great. Other neighborhoods need to work on that and make it better.
And that's, as you say, it's a mutual effort. I mean, both sides
Yes.
have to figure out, okay, where are we not connecting here, and how can we make this work better for everybody involved, right?
Now, I can tell you that I think our police academy does a wonderful job of training, and I get a chance to go down and speak to them at the end of their training session at the police academy. And to a person, the men and women that elect to go into that line of work go into it because they want to serve. They want to serve and protect. They want to help people. I mean, they don't go into for any other reason, and many of them are coming out of the military, and they really care about trying to do good public service, but they're under enormous stress right now, and that's why I say,
particularly now in this point in
Yeah.
history. Yeah, and actually, I've read even though there are lawsuits, everybody gets sued, right? But even the payouts involve a very small percentage of the actual officers. Something like 2% of the officers are responsible for this. So that means 98% are doing what we want them to do, right?
That's always been the case. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, when I was superintendent, we'd have the same thing. The vast majority of cops go to work every day, do a good job, and the media tends to play the cops that do something wrong and
Sure,
fire that up.
that's good copy.
Yeah.
That sells the news, right?
Yeah, I hear so many wonderful stories. I mean, my eyes have been opened in the last almost 6 years now in serving in this position of the extraordinary work that they do. And it goes untold, unheralded, unless the media goes out and tells it. And it's important that those stories are told as well, because they are saving lives every single day.
Well, not just saving lives, but as you've both alluded to, those situations that no one else knows how to handle. Well, who are you going to call?
Right.
You're going to call a policeman, you're going to call a fireman, and it's sort of taken for granted that they'll be there at the other end of 911.
Right.
I call, I need someone now, and they're there pretty much now.
And it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, they're going to show up. I mean,
Yeah,
if you need a doctor, you're going to call the doctor's office, and they're going to tell you to call back on Monday. But if you want a cop at 2 o'clock in the morning and you call 911, they'll be there.
Yeah, and I think we as you mentioned, we can lose sight of that pretty easily, right? So, Joe, I just have to ask, because I know your background is in television. How did you end up here at the 100 Club?
I think it was God ordained. My grandfather was a police officer in Philadelphia. He died the year I was born in 1945. And after leaving television, I spent 38 years in the television business. I tell the people in the police department I finally got honest work. And people ask me all the time if I miss the television business, and I tell them I wished everybody could get up every day and feel as good as I do about what they're doing in life at this stage of their life, because frankly, I feel like we're really doing God's work. We're helping families and people that are in crisis, and kids and families. And the impact when you reach out to help these families is so rewarding, so meaningful. It's changed my life dramatically.
Well, and Phil, I mean, it's a little more obvious as having spent as much time as you did in the police force, but what motivated you to do the foundation?
Well, I was a cop for 37 years, and I was involved in the foundation from the beginning with building the memorial and helping those families. Just like it's the most rewarding thing you can do, and to have a cop come to you with a problem and you can help put his kid in school, do other things, there's nothing better.
And what kind of feedback do you get from the families that you help? I mean, certainly people come back and tell you, yeah, this is great, or sometimes they might say, I wish you could have done this other thing. So how do you work with that feedback, and how do you solicit it?
Well, I mean, we don't solicit. I mean, we get it coming back, and I make sure that all of the thank you letters and everything else I bring to our board meetings so that our board members know, hey, they appreciate what you're doing for them.
I have a vivid reminder. The first check that I delivered the day after Thanksgiving 2010 was police officer, evidence technician Michael Flisk was shot and murdered. And I was at his home the next day to deliver a check for the family. And his daughter, Peg, graduated from DePaul University on a 100 Club scholarship, thanks to DePaul, but then went on to John Marshall Law School, and she graduated in June. And
June of just past year.
this past June. And I was invited by the family to go to a graduation dinner. And her mom, Nora, said to me, you know, Joe, she says, we wouldn't have been able to do this without the help of the people at the 100 Club. And it's hard to not get a tear when that happens, because you realize how important this organization is for these families and what they've experienced. And then you allow them to rewrite their own stories. And it's a great investment, investing in either the Police Memorial Foundation or the 100 Club, because you're really improving the quality of life of your own community by having these families go on and write their own story with the next generation.
And Phil, I'm sure you've had similar stories.
Absolutely, and like I said, it's an honor to serve these people. I mean, and if you could have asked any one of those 575 cops before they went to work on their last day, say, listen, you're not going to come home. What do you want from us? Each one would say, take care of my family. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. What are the hurdles that you guys face? I mean, you're doing great work, but I'm sure it's not easy. How do you guys not get burnt out?
Well, you have to, January 1st starts all over again. I mean, so you have to raise that money that you need, and as Joe mentioned, the costs are there. At today's dollars, if we didn't get another kid on, we've got a $3 million commitment for those 28 kids that are going through school. So you have to raise that money every year, and
so it's just like going back to work. You just got to keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I tell everyone, I draw inspiration from the families. Truly, you know, you deliver a check to a family that's just lost their dad, and the whole neighborhood turns out, and they are so appreciative of what this organization is doing for them.
Well, it takes so much weight off them at a critical time.
Yeah. We have 4 people that work in the 100 Club with college, helping with the college education and everything. And I tell the staff that no matter how hard you work this year, at the end of the year, you're going to look back and say that you got far more out of this than you ever put in. And I don't know too many professions that you can say that about.
It's hard.
It is. But this is one that you can really, you know, whatever you put in, and we work hard, and we have a lot of events, and we go, and it's an emotional roller coaster, as Phil knows. When you go, when there's a police officer or a firefighter killed in the line of duty, there's nothing sadder. But then when you see the family go on and graduate from college, and you know that you have something, played a part in that.
That you played a role in that.
That you played a role in that, and that, boy, that's immensely rewarding, personally.
I can imagine that it would be. And so, Phil, I'm sure the same thing. You draw just spiritual inspiration from this.
We have an event every December called Operation Santa. And what we do is we have a motorcade that goes and visits the house of every police officer who has a child that's still in school that was killed in the line of duty or catastrophically injured in the line of duty. And we usually have 30 people come with us on that. And at the end of the day, they all say exactly what Joe was just talking about. We got more out of this than those kids did. I mean, just to see those kids run out to the car and meet with Santa and get gifts and know that they're still part of the police family means a lot.
Well, on that note, I couldn't think of a better way to sum it up. We're out of time.
Wow.
Joe, Phil, thank you so much for being here. I've learned a lot about what you guys do.
Thanks so much.
I personally really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
And thank you for joining us once again on Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. You can find us every Saturday night at 8 o'clock on Channel 19 Comcast. And you can find us on the web at publicperspective.tv. So until next time, thank you and good night.